Chapter 335. Dolores chanted a magic sentence and spatial power surged out and enveloped her. She activated Blink, instantly disappearing from where she stood and retreating 100 meters away. At this moment, Charity and the other two powerhouses walked out of the babyface ghost tree forest covered in blood. Seeing that the situation was anything but reassuring, Yang Feng blurred into motion, turned into a stream of black light, and rushed into the depths of the dark forest. Although Dolores's injuries weren't light, but she was an advanced demigod-rank powerhouse after all. So long as she recovered a bit of her strength, Yang Feng wouldn't be her opponent. Dolores's beautiful eyes flashed with resentment, and she uttered while stressing each syllable, "Ian, how dare you attack me? I'll capture you alive and let you have a good taste of our Dark Elven clan's 1365 kinds of punishments." In Dolores's eyes, Yang Feng, who only had a level 3 warlock rank cultivation base, was like an ant. The fact that such an ant, who she didn't care about at all, injured her made her feel offended and enraged. Although Dolores was furious, but she still didn't take any risks. She took out a few vials of elixirs and poured them down her throat, operated dark force, and enveloped herself in a layer of black light, restoring her body and the power she consumed. Dolores had always been very cautious, which was one of the reasons why she defeated countless competitors and ascended to the throne of the great matriarch of the Dark Elves. The dark forest was full of dangers. Dolores almost died to the sound wave attack of the bone crows. The depths of the dark forest contained great dangers that could even kill gods. Naturally, Dolores wouldn't enter it while she was in a poor state. After passing through the wasteland of bones, a dense forest without a single passageway appeared in front of Yang Feng and company. All the trees in the forest had strange heads, including dragon heads, human heads, devil heads, and multi-armed trolls' heads. Countless tentacle-like vines extended from the trees, giving people a gloomy, strange, and terrifying feeling. These are extraordinary plants, headhunter trees. These are level 6 extraordinary plants. If they're not careful, even deities will be beheaded by these headhunter magic trees and their divine power will be sucked dry. When Yang Feng saw the strange trees full of different heads, his scalp turned numb and his eyes flashed with shock and fear. A level 6 transcendent plant like the headhunter devil tree was an extremely dangerous and terrifying devil tree. They were not like ordinary transcendent plants that waited for their prey to take the bait. Once they hunted their prey, they would extract their prey's blood essence and strength, leaving only their heads, which were embedded in the tree trunk. Once the headhunter magic tree had a head, it would gain the ability to move. Furthermore, it would possess a portion of the bloodline power of the prey it devoured. According to legend, the Warlock Emperor of the Second Warlock Dynasty, the Taboo Lord, had studied the evolution system of Blood Meridian Warlocks step by step with reference to this characteristic of the Headhunter magic tree. The only weakness of Headhunter trees was that they were afraid of fire. However, there were hundreds of Headhunter trees forming a demonic tree forest. Yang Feng was afraid that he would be devoured by the Headhunter trees as soon as he spat out a dragon breath. That's not right. These Headhunter demonic trees don't have any life fluctuations. Is it because of the gray aura? Yang Feng's heart suddenly stirred, and he thought of the skeletal crows that collapsed due to the mysterious gray aura. After hesitating for a while, Yang Feng clenched his teeth, rushed into the forest of headhunter trees with Azramia on his back, and frantically fled into the distance. The eyes of the heads embedded in the top of the headhunter trees were lifeless, and there were no fluctuations of life coming from them. They allowed Yang Feng to pass through the strange forest. After passing through the forest of headhunter magic trees, a vast and almost boundless desert appeared before Yang Feng's eyes. Yang Feng took a deep look at the desert made of golden sand. With the keen perception of a level 3 warlock, he perceived a great terror at the bottom of the desert. Yang Feng hesitated for a moment. Then, thinking of Dolores chasing after him, coupled with the mysterious gray aura and the strange headhunter trees, he clenched his teeth and pressed his chest, and the mechanical lightning aurora python flew out at once. Yang Feng jumped lightly onto the back of the mechanical lightning aurora python. Surrounded by countless bolts of lightning, the mechanical lightning aurora python immediately turned into a bolt of lightning and flew towards the depths of the desert. The mechanical lightning aurora python's energy source was the crystal cores and high-energy crystals inside its body. Even if it couldn't use the vigor of heaven and earth, it wouldn't be affected much. After passing through the strange desert, a forest covered with all kinds of terrifying extraordinary plants appeared in front of Yang Feng and company. After passing through the forest covered with all kinds of terrifying extraordinary plants, Yang Feng and company passed through magma, mysterious lakes, weird mountain ranges with human faces, and other peerless danger zones brimming with a sense of danger. When Yang Feng passed through those areas, relying on his extraordinary perception of a level 3 warlock, he could sense some peerless existences hiding in places he couldn't perceive, and gazes full of malice fell on him. Yang Feng pretended that he wasn't aware of those terrifying existences. He braced himself and walked forward quickly, not daring to retreat. After passing through a strange, extraordinary plant forest, a 5-kilometer-wide river exuding wisps of netherworld aura gushed out of a huge cave in midair. After extending for nearly 100 kilometers, the river strangely disappeared and appeared in front of Yang Feng and company, blocking in front of them. The river water was gray, and wisps of mysterious gray aura diffused from it. Above the river, there was a shabby boat made of gray wood quietly floating. When Yang Feng arrived in front of the river, he frowned slightly. He vaguely felt that there was a great terror hidden in the gray river. After hesitating for a while, Yang Feng flicked his wrist, and a piece of dragon bast paper appeared in his hand. He lightly tapped the dragon bast paper, and it immediately flashed with light and transformed into a sparrow. The sparrow flapped its wings and flew towards the gray river in the distance. The alchemical sparrow had just flown above the gray river, when, as if it encountered an irresistible force, it fell into the gray river, completely severing its connection with Yang Feng. Yang Feng's complexion changed slightly. He flicked his fingers, and alchemical eagles, alchemical dragonflies, alchemical swans, and many other alchemical treasures flew into the distance. As soon as the alchemical treasures flew above the gray river, under the effect of a mysterious force, they plunged into the gray river, directly severing their connection with Yang Feng. Yang Feng pondered for a while, then took out another stack of dragon bast paper, silently recited an incantation and tossed it. The dragon bast paper rose into the air, turned into a 10-meter-long alchemical boat, and landed on the gray river. When the alchemical boat landed on the gray river, it was immediately eroded by the gray aura, and sank into the gray river inch by inch. What a strange river! It seems that I can only use that boat to cross it. Yang Feng's eyebrows wrinkled slightly, then he stepped onto the small boat. After carrying Yang Feng's group of 3, the dilapidated gray boat, which looked like it would fall apart at any moment, still floated on the water, showing no signs of sinking. When Yang Feng saw this, he heaved a sigh of relief, then picked up the wooden oar and started rowing. When the oar rowed, the gray boat moved, and a strange and terrifying life force slowly spread from the depths of the gray river. When Yang Feng sensed the terrifying life force, his body immediately became extremely tense. Under the terrifying pressure, he was practically unable to budge. The terrifying existence hidden in the depths of the gray river was a terrifying freak above ordinary gods. When the fierce and terrifying life force was released, the gray wooden or released gray light and pressed down, and the fierce and terrifying life force disappeared. This thing, I didn't expect it to be a treasure. Yang Feng wiped the cold sweat from his back. He grabbed the gray wooden oar and looked at it for a while, his eyes flashing with a strange light. No matter how he looked at it, Yang Feng couldn't tell what material was used in the gray wooden oar, nor could he see anything strange about it. If it hadn't released the gray light just now, he wouldn't have known that the gray wooden oar contained such terrifying power. After crossing the strange gray river, Yang Feng jumped off the wooden boat, took out a dimensional badge and activated it, attempting to store the gray wooden boat and the oar inside the dimensional badge. Bang! The dimensional badge collapsed and exploded, sending countless fragments flying in all directions. As if stimulated by something, the gray wooden boat moved on its own despite the lack of wind, and slowly but firmly swam towards the other side of the Gray River. Sure enough, such a treasure isn't that easy to collect. Yang Feng looked at the gray wooden boat, and his eyes flashed with regret. He turned around and walked into the distance. After crossing the strange Gray River, in the distance, a domineering palace towering into the clouds, as if supporting the entire world, appeared in front of Yang Feng and company. Rays of mystical and resplendent light shrouded the domineering palace, making it seem like a temple where the gods lived in legends. Since there's no retreat, then I can only go in and take a look. Yang Feng looked at the palace that suddenly appeared, his eyebrows creased slightly, and then relaxed. His eyes flashed with determination, and he strode towards the palace. Chapter 336. When he arrived in front of the gate of the palace, Yang Feng looked at the palace with shock in his eyes. He saw the heads of countless formidable extraordinary life forms embedded outside the huge palace gate. There were heads of primordial dragons, heads of primordial giants, heads of abyssal fiend dukes, heads of strong divine force rank gods, heads of high elven monarchs, heads of 9-headed dragons, heads of primordial earthen beings, and other terrifying existences. Outside the palace, the heads of countless formidable existences merged with the palace. Even after who knows how many tens of thousands of years, they still exuded frightening might. Yang Feng stared at a 50-meter-long primordial dragon head with a peculiar glint in his eyes. The body of a primordial dragon contained the ultimate mysteries of dragons. If he could take out the primordial dragon head for research, then Yang Feng's embodiment might even have a chance to break through the bloodline shackles and possess god-rank battle prowess before ascending to godhood. Primordial dragons were already very rare on many planes. Furthermore, every primordial dragon was a bigwig with a world-shaking cultivation base. It was very difficult to obtain their blood and tissues. If the primordial dragon head was sold in the Xianxia plane, it might even be exchanged for a grade 9 plane. Yang Feng pondered for a while, then took out a piece of dragon bast paper and flicked his finger. The dragon bast paper turned into a demonic eagle, flapped its wings, rose into the sky, and flew towards the primordial dragon head. The demonic eagle had just flown to a distance of about 30 meters from the primordial dragon head, when it was shrouded by yellow light containing frightening power and quickly exploded. Yang Feng frowned slightly. This is a barrier, a very powerful barrier. This barrier isn't something that I can contend against at the moment. Yang Feng silently recited an incantation, pointed at his eyes, and cast the spell Spirit Eye, and a misty cyan light enveloped his eyes. Yang Feng looked at the huge palace with wide eyes, only to see that the palace was surrounded by a frightening barrier. Only the entrance to the palace wasn't covered by the barrier. At the entrance to the palace stood a 6-meter-tall stone statue with a human head, a dragon head, and a devil head. The lower half of the statue was humanoid, and it held a trident in its hand. We've finally arrived. This is the legendary palace where the Xianxia Plains taboo lord once lived. With a sigh, a burly, hairy, middle-aged man with strange demonic runes on his face walked over. He looked at the palace with excitement in his eyes. Taboo Lord, the second Warlock Dynasty's Warlock Emperor. Yang Feng's heart shook greatly. Looking at the palace, tempestuous waves set off in his heart. The Taboo Lord was one of the strongest warlocks in the history of the Xianxia Plain. During his lifetime, all the plains around the Xianxia Plain were his territories. No one dared to resist his order. The bloodline warlock path was opened by the Taboo Lord, and it was still one of the 2 righteous paths leading to the pinnacle of power in the Xianxia Plain. My luck is pretty good. Before entering the Taboo Lord's palace, he would encounter 3 more prey. These 2 prey were the most beautiful elves I had ever seen in my life. How lucky! The gaze of the middle-aged man covered in long hair, looking like a bear, shifted and fell on Yang Feng and company, and his eyes flashed with excitement. The eyes of the bear-like middle-aged man flashed with a fierce glint, the demonic runes on his face lit up, and frightening great warlock rank might spread from him. He suddenly swelled and turned into a 4-meter-tall bear-like man with 1-meter-long claws. Lowly human, when you get to the netherworld, Remember that the one who killed you is the Black Radiant Plains Antonia. The eyes of the terrifying bear-like man suddenly flashed with a fierce and sinister glint, and he swung his claws at Yang Feng. Idiot! You'll be the one to die. A cold glint flashed past Yang Feng's eyes. The black dragon armor shone, and formidable power poured into him from the black dragon armor. He unleashed the level 4 spell dragon force. As if the embodiment of a frightening humanoid dragon, he suddenly burst out and slammed his fist into the terrifying bear-like claw. Under the frightening dragon force, the bear-like Antonia was blasted away by Yang Feng's fist and violently retreated by dozens of steps. Suddenly, as if the embodiment of a black bolt of lightning, Yang Feng rushed to in front of Adodonia, stabbed his claws into Adodonia's chest, and tore open a huge hole. Yang Feng opened his mouth, and a dragon breath sprayed on Adodonia's body, setting him ablaze. Antonia struggled frantically in the dragon breath. After a while, he turned into a pile of ashes and disappeared. Azramia's beautiful eyes shimmered with disgust, and she said unhurriedly, "Really, these guests from other planes are really savage." Yang Feng smiled faintly and didn't say much. Powerhouses capable of planar travel were at least great warlock rank powerhouses. These powerhouses didn't come from a higher plane like the Zhangji plane, but rather from a lower plane. After countless fights, they stepped into the pinnacle of power. When such powerhouses went to other planes, they didn't regard the intelligent life forms of other planes as beings of the same level as themselves. In front of great warlock rank powerhouses, Yang Feng's trifling level 3 warlock rank strength wasn't enough. This meant that Yang Feng didn't have the qualifications to be taken seriously by them. Interesting, Ian, you're using the power of a dragon. In other words, you're from the country of dragons. No wonder you can practice magic and martial dual cultivation. A burly, domineering middle-aged man with a Tiger King tattoo on his forehead and a thick golden tail wrapped around his waist walked out from the side, stared at Yang Feng, and uttered with a faint smile. Azramia's beautiful eyes flashed with astonishment, and she uttered unhurriedly, "You're the guardian of the tiger men in the secular world, Golden Tiger Monarch." Golden Tiger Monarch swept Azramia with a glance, a look of disappointment flashed past the abyss of his eyes, and he sighed slowly. "Azramia, this is the first time we've met. However, I've seen you many times in magic images. You're really in a sorry state now, needing the protection of a human with dirty black dragon bloodline flowing through his veins. I'm really disappointed. I thought that in the entire Feisua Plains secular world, only you had the qualifications to be my woman. What a disappointment. I'm really disappointed." Azramia warned, "Ian, Golden Tiger Monarch is the guardian of the tiger men in the secular world, one of the 2 royal families of the Beastman Empire. He possesses demigod rank strength, and is one of the strongest lords in the Feisua Plains secular world." Demigod rank powerhouses were the most powerful existences in the Feisua Plains secular world. The entire Dark Elven race originally only had 2 demigod rank powerhouses, Dolores and Gleistar. Give me Azramia, and then get the hell out of here. I can give you 2 a chance to live. Otherwise, this will be your burial ground. You might be the bloodline descendant of some old dragon in the country of dragons, but that's not important to me. Golden Tiger Monarch stared coldly at Yang Feng. Shortly after, demigod rank might spread from him and swept towards Yang Feng. The advanced demigod rank might oppressed Yang Feng to the point of suffocation. "Golden Tiger Monarch, I'm very sorry. Azramia is my prey. Please let me have her, okay? Of course, I'll offer you the former Pope of the Dark Elven Church, Gleistar, as well as 100 beautiful Dark Elven virgins." Amidst the waves of enchanting and sweet sounds, Dolores wore a flirtatious smile on her face as she swayed with every step she took. Bursts of exotic fragrance drifted from her body along with the wind. When Golden Tiger Monarch saw the enchanting Dolores, his eyes flashed with an intoxicating glint, and he said with a hearty smile, "So beautiful, what a beautiful and coquettish woman." As expected of the great matriarch of the Dark Elves. "If you're willing to play with me for a few days, then I promise to give Azramia to you after I'm tired of playing with her. In any case, You're going to sacrifice her to the gods, so it doesn't matter if I play with her for a few days. Dolores threw Golden Tiger Monarch a coquettish look and said with an enchanting smile, "All right, Golden Tiger Monarch, it's a deal." Yang Feng swept Dolores and Golden Tiger Monarch with a glance, and his eyes shimmered with determination. His figure blurred, and he rushed towards the entrance of the huge palace. Normally, Yang Feng wouldn't be so reckless as to rush towards the entrance of the palace. But with the two advanced demigod-rank powerhouses Dolores and Golden Tiger Monarch joining hands, he had no chance of winning. Dolores and Golden Tiger Monarch just looked at Yang Feng with ridicule in their eyes. Then, they glanced at the stone statue guarding the entrance of the palace, and their eyes shimmered with apprehension. They used Yang Feng as a test prop. When Yang Feng was only 10 meters away from the stone statue, a bloody light descended from the palace and shone on the stone statue. Crack, crack. As a series of crisp cracking sounds rang out, the stone on the surface of the stone statue peeled off inch by inch, revealing a monster with 3 heads: a human head, a dragon head, and a devil head. The lower half of its body was humanoid, and it held a trident in its hand. It was 6 meters tall and exuded a terrifying pressure that surpassed that of a god. As soon as the freak within the stone statue woke up, its scarlet eyes flashed with a touch of killing intent, and 2 blood-colored beams of light shot out from its eyes and shone on Yang Feng. Chapter 337. Yang Feng was brushed by the 2 scarlet radiances practically without any resistance. Under the suppression of a terrifying and peerless power, he was unable to move his body in the slightest. It was as if time had stopped for him, with only his thoughts remaining. Even the connection between Yang Feng and the smart chip implanted in his brain was severed. Like a statue, he stood quietly in place. When Dolores and Golden Tiger Monarch sensed the fluctuations of power emitted by the freak, they spat out a mouthful of blood and suffered minor injuries. Dolores's beautiful eyes were filled with shock and fear. What a terrifying freak! I'm afraid it's even stronger than Goddess Lolth. As soon as the terrifying pressure from the 3-headed monster spread out, ripples appeared in the surrounding space. The powerhouses from different planes hiding in various corners were forced to reveal themselves. In this vast plane, there were more than 30 powerhouses from different planes. There was no change in Dolores's pretty face. She just focused her gaze on a young and handsome man dressed in a black traditional aristocratic attire, with a pale complexion, who looks like he hasn't seen the sun for thousands of years, but whose eyes are filled with vicissitudes of life, exuding both an old and a young temperament. The Golden Tiger King's gaze fell on an ugly and ferocious-looking man with a horn carved with strange runes on his head. He was tall and sturdy, and his eyes were crimson as he drooled. Among the more than 30 powerhouses from different planes, only the 2 powerhouses gave Dolores and Golden Tiger Monarch a very dangerous feeling. Amazing as expected of a gatekeeper of the Taboo Lord. The Asian man with a ponytail and a long saber on his back was also forced to come out of his invisible space. At this time, his appearance had completely changed into that of a Westerner. Looking at the 3-headed monster, his eyes flashed with a touch of admiration. "You have Master's aura on you, please come in." The 3-headed freak with the trident in hand suddenly knelt in front of Yang Feng. The 3 heads didn't speak, but a voice reverberated in Yang Feng's sea of knowledge. A trace of shock flashed in Dolores's beautiful eyes. Her mind was shaken and her beautiful eyes flashed with disbelief. What's going on? Why would that monster kneel to him? Isn't he an ordinary magic shooter? The Golden Tiger King was also dumbfounded and murmured, "Isn't he just an ordinary dragon?" What was going on? Even if he was the illegitimate son of the dragon god, it was impossible for him to make the gatekeeper of the Taboo Lord kneel. Even if the dragon god himself came, he wouldn't be able to make the gatekeeper of the Taboo Lord kneel. All the experts who came from other planes were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe their eyes. The experts who had gathered here all had a rough understanding of this place. They naturally knew how terrifying and powerful the master of this palace was. They had expected the gatekeeper chosen by the master of the palace to be powerful, But for such a powerful gatekeeper to kneel in front of Yang Feng was simply appalling. Crack, crack. The golden gate behind the three-headed monster slowly opened, and a majestic palace slowly emerged. Beams of incomparably powerful treasure light shot out from the palace gate, captivating people's hearts. TSK. Get in, you ant. The one-horned and sinister-looking demigod rank expert smiled malevolently, then strangely appeared behind a great warlock rank expert from another plane and extended his hand. A black incantation shot out from his right hand and, as if chains, locked the great warlock rank expert from another plane, and then threw him away. The locked great warlock rank powerhouse turned into a black ray of light and flew towards the gold gate. The black incantation sealed the great warlock rank powerhouse completely, leaving him unable to budge. He could only powerlessly fly towards the gold gate. A scarlet ray ejected from the gatekeeper's trident kneeling on the ground and landed on the great warlock rank powerhouse. The great warlock rank powerhouse from another plane issued a miserable scream, and then turned into ashes that scattered in the air. Those who attempt to blaspheme Master will die. Among the gatekeeper's three heads, the devil head raised its head and stared at the one-horned demigod powerhouse from another plane. Two rays of red light shot out of its eyes. The single-horned demigod powerhouse let out an angry roar, and his body suddenly expanded, transforming into a 7-meter-tall, pitch-black Abemi-horned giant demonic ape that resembled a giant gorilla. It was a level 5 extraordinary life form, a Abemi-horned giant demonic ape, that was 7 meters tall. Abemi-horned giant demonic apes were one-horned giant demonic apes of the grade 3 Abemi plane. Adult Abemi-horned giant demonic apes possessed terrifying starry sky warlock rank strength, and the most powerful demonic apes could even fight gods. They didn't even fear dragons. The two red rays shot out of the gatekeeper's eyes and shone on the Abemi-horned giant demonic ape. In just an instant, the mature Abemi-horned giant demonic ape issued a mournful cry, and then collapsed and turned into ashes that drifted away with the wind. The two scarlet rays immediately retracted and entered the depths of the eyes of the gatekeeper kneeling in front of Yang Feng. Seeing this scene, the complexions of everyone in the vast plain changed dramatically, and their eyes shimmered with fear and shock. The complexions of Dolores, the golden tiger monarch, and the handsome young man with a pale complexion also changed dramatically, and fear and apprehension shimmered in the abyss of their eyes. The Abemi one-horned giant magic ape was a powerhouse on the same level as Dolores and the others. Even if Dolores wanted to defeat the Abemi one-horned giant magic ape, she would need over 1,000 moves. The gatekeeper turned the Abemi-horned giant demonic ape into ashes with a glance. In its eyes, Dolores and the other experts were just ants that could be killed with a glance. Yang Feng's eyes lit up slightly, and he used a spell and silently transmitted, "Gatekeeper, can you help me kill a few enemies? Respected guest, unless it's the Master's personal order. Otherwise, my duty is just to guard the gate and prevent others from entering. Besides, I can only fight back and can't do anything else. This is the Master's order, I can't disobey it." A voice came from the other side of the gatekeeper. Yang Feng sighed with some regret, and then stepped into the gold gate. After Yang Feng stepped into the gold gate closed immediately. In the vast plain, when the experts from different planes saw Yang Feng step into the gold gate, their eyes almost went mad with jealousy, but they were powerless to do anything. "So it's here. I finally found it." A majestic and loud voice suddenly sounded in the sky. Rays of incomparably bright light descended from the sky and pierced into the dark forest, dispersing the demonic mist that shrouded the dark forest. A giant hand formed from pure light, which looked like it could grasp the whole world, extended from the resplendent rays of light and mercilessly grabbed at the gold palace. "Shit!" A god-rank freak intervened. "This isn't something I can get involved in." The complexion of the man with a ponytail, a large blade on his back, and an unruly temperament changed greatly. With a flick of his wrist, he took out a green leaf. The green leaf blossomed with emerald light and enveloped the man with the blade on his back, causing him to disappear from where he stood. As if coming to life, the heads of the countless fearsome beings embedded in the gold palace exuded frightening power beyond the god rank. Beams of power shot out of their mouths, converged, and barreled towards the giant hand in the sky. Boom! Following an earth-shattering blare, fearsome shockwaves spread in all directions. Swept by the fearsome shockwaves, 6 of the 30-plus experts from other planes turned into ashes. Dolores, the Golden Tiger Monarch, and the Pale Man retreated briskly, quickly distancing themselves from the Gold Palace. Under the attack of the fearsome beam of power, large chunks of blood fell from the sky, scattered on the ground, and then were devoured by the Gold Palace. The fearsome voice echoed in the area, "Taboo Lord," as expected of one of the most powerful experts in history. Even though he is dead, the things he left behind are still so troublesome. Prados, Amigo, Mofasaraja, Arkith, if you want to reap the benefits from the sidelines, then let's split up and I won't take action. 9 sacred Pegasi with a horn on their head, 4 wings on their ribs, and sacred light exuding pinnacle starry sky warlock rank fluctuations of power pulled a chariot shrouded in sacred light. Looking like a sacred sun, the chariot emerged from the void and floated in the void. Rays of holy and powerful light descended from the sky and scattered on the ground. Zalia Divine System's radiant primary god. Dolores's pretty face fell, and she retreated briskly. Illuminated by the light, the dark force protecting her issued sizzling sounds and was consumed. If a dark force cultivator like Dolores stood next to the radiant primary god Prados, she would be quickly burned and purified into ashes. Chapter 338. A series of terrifying war drums suddenly rang out between the heavens and the earth. When the fearsome war drums sounded, the hearts of the more than 20 experts from other planes throbbed in an instant, and then beat according to a strange rhythm. No matter what secret methods they used, the more than 20 legend rank experts couldn't control their hearts, and their blood unconsciously boiled according to a strange rhythm. A 50-meter-long 9-headed hydra engraved with strange runes and exuding moonlight warlock rank fluctuations of power pulled a bone chariot forged from countless god bones through the void. The bone chariot was shrouded in a bloody aura of war, making it impossible to see what was inside the bone chariot. The bone chariot and the radiant chariot faced each other, and the rumbling of war drums and pure radiant light, 2 completely different frightening forces reverberated in the area. The more than 20 legend-rank powerhouses from other planes felt their chi and blood boil, and they almost split apart and died. Then, illuminated by the warm radiance, they recovered. Boom! The strange sound of the war drums suddenly stopped, and the bodies of 10 slightly weaker legend-rank powerhouses from other planes swelled up and then exploded. The remaining dozen or so legend-rank powerhouses from the alien planes also turned pale. They looked at the divine bone chariot and radiant carriage in the sky with fear in their eyes. These legend-rank experts who infiltrated the Fesua plane from other planes were cultivation geniuses of their planes. When they entered the Fesua plane, they looked down on the weak aboriginals of the Fesua plane. Now that they saw the bone chariot and the radiant chariot in the sky, they realized how powerful the most terrifying experts of the Fesua plane were. A sacred golden oak leaf, which looked like a ship, drifted out of the void. The golden oak leaf, which was the size of a ship, had countless flowers growing on it, and formed a beautiful and moving flower cottage. The fragrance of flowers wafted out of the flower cottage. A 9-headed lion with several heads pulled a luxurious litter studded with all kinds of precious gems out of the void. Inside the luxurious litter sat a tall and sturdy lion man expert with lion ears and a lion tail wrapped around his waist, exuding a fearsome and domineering aura. The lion man expert was holding 2 beautiful foxy women in his arms and playing with them wantonly, not caring about the surrounding gazes. Greetings, mighty divine monarch. When the golden tiger monarch saw the tall and sturdy lion man expert, his face fell, and he knelt on the ground and kowtowed respectfully. The lion god Arkith was not only a god worshipped by the lion men, but also one of the 2 divine monarchs of the Beastman Empire. He was respected, worshipped, and believed in by the Beastman Empire. So it's you, Akina. It's very dangerous here. It's not a place for a little guy like you to stay. Get out. Arketh casually glanced at the Golden Tiger King and casually flicked his finger. A red divine light descended from the sky and landed on the Golden Tiger King. In the blink of an eye, the Golden Tiger King disappeared from where he stood. Seeing the Golden Tiger Monarch disappear, the eyes of the dozen-plus legend-rank powerhouses flashed with envy. They couldn't budge at all. If they made the slightest movement, they would become the battlefield and victims of the battle between the 4 strong divine force-rank gods in the sky. Even Dolores stood at the very edge, prostrating herself on the ground, shivering, full of humility. In front of the gods, mortals must remain humble. This was clearly written in the Treaty of the Gods. Once a mortal provoked or blasphemed the gods had the right to take action and kill the mortal. Ferocious battle intent emanated from the bone chariot. Prados, let's have a fight. It's been a long time since I fought you, more than 100,000 years. Let me see how much you've improved. Countless war drums rumbled around the bone chariot, and wisps of the aura of war slowly diffused from the bone chariot. The hearts of the dozen-plus legend-rank powerhouses thumped wildly, and their eyes turned bloodshot. A dignified voice came from the sacred radiant chariot. Amigo, you stupid bull. Mofasaraja and Akina are watching from the sidelines. Besides, they are also watching from the sidelines. None of the gods of the darkness pantheon have shown up. If you want to fight me, wait until today's matters are settled, then let's go to the astral boundary to fight. After the Treaty of the Gods was signed, wars between gods generally took place in their respective divine countries or in the astral boundary. If they fought in the secular world, the aftermath of the war between 2 feeble divine force-rank gods could easily destroy 1 or 2 small principalities if they didn't control it a little. Gatekeeper, Taboo Lord died a long time ago. There's no point in you guarding the gate. Step aside and let us in. You're not our match. As long as you step aside, our Xalia divine system is willing to accept you and give you enough believers so that you can ignite the divine fire and ascend to godhood. You will become one of our Xalia divine system's gods. You will be high and mighty and have eternal life. The voice of the Xalia pantheon's radiant primary god Prados came from the chariot shrouded in radiant light. When he said that, the eyes of the dozen-plus legend-rank powerhouses, including Dolores, flashed with envy. Becoming a god of the Fesua plane was the ultimate goal of powerhouses who didn't hesitate to cross over from other planes to become a god. Once you ascended to godhood, even if it was a human, your life essence would undergo a tremendous transformation, surpass countless extraordinary life forms in one fell swoop, and have a lifespan of millions of years at the very least. Even countless human warlocks of the Xianxia plane, in order to live longer and obtain a longer lifespan, chose to leave the Xianxia plane and go to other lower planes to ascend to godhood. The position of a god was extremely precious, and many powerhouses would even give up everything for a god position. I refuse. Master ordered me to guard this palace. Unless Master gives the order himself, I won't leave this palace. Otherwise, I won't leave this palace. Standing loftily in front of the gold gate with a trident in hand, the 3-headed freak looked up at the radiant primary god Prados in the sky with unyielding will in its eyes. The voice of the Xalia pantheon's radiant primary god Prados came from the chariot shrouded in radiant light. Since you're so stubborn, then go to hell. In the sky, the 4 strong divine force-rank gods exuded frightening divine might, yet they didn't take the initiative to attack. Instead, they fell into a deadlock with the gatekeeper. After all, the gatekeeper was a terrifying existence left behind by the Taboo Lord. No one knew how powerful it was. The relationship between the 4 strong divine force-rank gods was extremely complicated. No one was willing to take the initiative and let the others take advantage of it. I'll go first, the 4 of you follow. If you're not willing to attack, then I won't. The mysterious voice sighed slightly, and another giant hand descended from the sky and mercilessly grabbed at the gold palace. In front of that terrifying giant hand, the majestic golden palace was like a toy, as if it could be grabbed by that terrifying giant hand at any time. How dare you? You dare to offend the Master's palace. You deserve to die 1,000 times over. The gatekeeper's 6 eyes widened, Then it roared and suddenly leaped up with the trident in hand and stabbed at the giant hand. A resplendent blood-colored halberd ray burst out of the trident and slashed at the giant hand in the sky. "You dare to cut off my arm! I will kill you!" Accompanied by an incomparably furious scream, the terrifying giant hand was immediately split into two. It exploded, turning into countless pieces of flesh and blood that rained down from the sky and scattered on the ground. The countless heads embedded in the gold palace opened their bloody maws and devoured the chunks of flesh and blood. Virtually at the same time, the sacred radiant chariot gushed out almost endless light and illuminated the inside of the gold palace. The gold palace suddenly trembled, and countless heads opened their eyes. The eyes of those fearsome existences shimmered with ferocious bloody light, and they ejected bloody light from their mouths that hit the light god's rays and resisted the erosion of the light god's rays. An emerald green arrow containing endless force of nature suddenly shot out from the flower hut on the golden oak leaf. Arrow of nature, this was the strongest archery skill grasped by the elven primary god Mofusaraja. It was by relying on the unpredictable arrow of nature that the elves, who only had the protection of a strong divine force rank god, could become one of the Feisua Plains' 4 empires. No powerhouse of the same rank was willing to face Mofusaraja's arrow of nature head-on. Virtually without a sound, the gatekeeper's chest was pierced, and a large hole appeared. A copious amount of force of nature reverberated in his chest, strange tree vines grew frantically along his body, and 2 tendrils stabbed at his eyes like flood dragons. Oh! The gatekeeper coughed out a mouthful of blood and let out an earth-shattering roar. A blood-red power suddenly erupted from his body, and the vines on his body withered. The remaining dozen or so legendary powerhouses had their heads explode one by one, and only 6 of them barely survived. The gold palace ejected blood-colored rays that entered the gatekeeper's body, causing his power to rise steadily. The gatekeeper's 6 eyes turned and locked on the elven primary god Mofusaraja hiding inside the flower hut. Chapter 339. Bloody light enveloped the gatekeeper, and he instantly disappeared, reappeared in front of the golden oak leaf, and brandished the bloody trident to stab at the golden oak leaf. "Gatekeeper, your opponent is me." Arkath suddenly shot out of the litter and unleashed the god-grade martial skill Lion God's Claw he created. Containing the fearsome might to tear the sky apart, his claw shot towards the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper's devilish head turned 180 degrees, and 2 scarlet rays suddenly shot out, hit Arkath's Lion God's Claw, and blocked it. At that moment, the blood-colored trident pierced into the golden oak leaf. A large amount of golden blood sprinkled on the ground from the golden oak leaf. A peerless beauty with long emerald green hair, a curvaceous waist, twin peaks nearly bursting out of her clothes, skin as translucent as jade, a peerless countenance, and a noble temperament, dressed in an exquisite and luxurious green leaf armor, flew out of the golden oak leaf. There was a huge bloody hole in her abdomen, and a large amount of golden blood sprinkled on the ground from the bloody hole in her abdomen. After seriously injuring the elven primary god Mofusaraja with this strike, the gatekeeper weakened slightly. Arkath's Lion God's Claw grabbed the gatekeeper's right shoulder and tore a large part of the gatekeeper's right shoulder. With a silver sword in hand, Amigo strangely appeared behind the gatekeeper and chopped the gatekeeper's left arm in 2. The gatekeeper roared, and fearsome bloody light erupted from him. In an instant, he turned into a 50-meter-long archaic gold dragon covered in golden scales and with 9 dragon heads. Vast and fearsome might came from the archaic gold dragon, and the 9 dragon heads belched 9 archaic dragon breaths barreling towards the 4 powerhouses. Radiant divine light radiated from the holy radiant chariot and swept towards the archaic dragon breath. Purified by the radiant divine light, the archaic dragon breath collapsed and disappeared before it could touch the holy radiant chariot. When Arkath's Lion God's Claw slammed into the archaic dragon breath, it tore through space and banished the archaic dragon breath into a spatial rift. Amigo slashed at the primordial dragon breath with the silver war god's sword, shattering it in 1 strike. The remaining 6 archaic dragon breaths barreled towards Mofusaraja like shooting stars. Mofusaraja's pretty face flickered. She clenched her teeth and waved her lily-white hand, and a green jade plate suddenly appeared in her hand. A stream of green water of nature flew out of the god armament jade plate and swept towards the 6 archaic dragon breaths. When the archaic dragon breaths, which even magic water could not extinguish, were sprinkled by the green water of nature, they issued sizzling sounds and collapsed and dissipated. The bloody trident pierced through the green water of nature and pierced through Mofusarage's body like a bolt of lightning, nailing her to the ground. Traces of blood-red corrosive power quickly spread towards Mofusarage. Mofusarage's face flickered, and she pointed upwards. In the void, a huge hole suddenly split open, revealing a lush and verdant divine country of nature filled with the aura of nature and countless beautiful elves. Green divine power of nature gushed out of the divine country of nature like a sea and entered Mofusarage. The bloody trident stabbed into Mofusarage's abdomen was sent flying by the frightening divine power of nature. As if sensing something, the countless beautiful elves inside the divine country of nature knelt on the ground and recited prayers. Streams of ocean-like divine power poured into Mofusarage and quickly healed her injuries. The reason why gods were virtually invincible in one-on-one fights against those of the same rank was that they could use the endless divine power of their divine country and the ability to fight a protracted battle. Few existences could compare to god-rank powerhouses. Fool, this is the residence of Taboo Lord. How dare you open a divine country here and draw support from its power? How foolish! The gatekeeper smiled coldly and pointed at the projection of the divine country with the bloody trident in his hand. The gray river in front of the palace suddenly erupted. As if piercing through the world barrier, the gray river water soared into the sky and entered Mofusarage's divine country of nature. Inside Mofusarage's divine country, when the beautiful and powerful elves were swept by the gray river, their pretty faces changed, and they fell from the divine country into the gray river. This is the Styx. You can manipulate the Styx. Mofusarage's complexion changed dramatically, and she cried out involuntarily. At the same time, she pointed with her lily-white finger, and the entrance to the divine country of nature closed completely. The netherworld was the final destination of the dead. Each plane had its own netherworld. Among the planes, there was a Styx with the Zhangji plane as its starting point and running through countless planes. Unless the souls of believers of gods were received into the divine country, the souls of the dead would enter the netherworld through the laws of the nether, and then have their memories washed away by the Styx. Within the divine country, apart from gods, as long as any existences came into contact with the water of the Styx, they would fall directly from the divine country into the netherworld. Mofusarage was a strong divine power rank god. Unless her true body expended a huge amount of divine power, she could only save 1 or 2 elves from the water of the Styx at a time. Once the water of the Styx entered Mofusarage's divine country of nature, the souls of her believers in the divine country would fall into the netherworld. The Styx can only be controlled by the nether gods of each plane who have mastered the laws of the netherworld, or by mighty existences like Master. However, with Master's power, I can control the Styx a bit. The gatekeeper's eyes flashed fiercely, and it slammed its huge dragon claws into Mofusarage, causing her to spit out another mouthful of golden blood. A copious amount of radiant divine light suddenly converged from the chariot filled with sacred light and formed a 30-meter-long sword filled with radiant divine power, and fearsome might condensed on the sword. Radiant Blade of Judgment was one of the most frightening offensive divine spells of the radiant primary god Prados. As soon as the Radiant Blade of Judgment took shape, it entered the void, appeared in front of the gatekeeper in the next moment, and slashed down. A huge golden dragon head fell, and a large amount of red blood spilled from the severed head of the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper's huge dragon claw once again ruthlessly slapped great elven monarch Mofusarage's delicate body, causing her internal organs to rupture and causing her to spit out a mouthful of golden blood. The gatekeeper that has transformed into 8 golden dragon heads spat out balls of primordial dragon breath that blasted towards the 4 powerhouses. 3 archaic dragon breaths were blocked by Prados and the other 2 powerhouses, while the other 5 dragon breaths slammed into Mofusaraja and burned her frantically, causing her to scream miserably. In the dark forest, Mofusaraja suffered too many restrictions, making her unable to exert her most powerful battle strength. She could not resist the crazy attack of the gatekeeper. The bloody trident pointed at Mofusaraja, and gray water of the sticks suddenly flew out and poured towards Mofusaraja. Mofusaraja's pretty face flickered, and she clenched her teeth and silently recited an incantation. Countless green tree vines suddenly ejected from her leaf armor and bounced off the 8 golden dragon claws. Her figure blurred, and she fled into the distance. Mofusaraja was aware of the gatekeeper's strategy, which was to seriously injure or even kill her. Although the gatekeeper was only one of her avatars that descended into the secular world, but it was extremely important. She spent countless divine power and precious treasures to create it. It was more precious than many god armaments. She couldn't let it fall here. A radiant blade of judgment descended from the sky and chopped off another head of the 9-headed golden dragon. Arkatha's lion god's claw slammed into one of the 9 golden dragon's heads. Wherever the might of the lion god's claw reached, the golden dragon's head exploded, and blood splashed everywhere. Amigo slashed down with the sword of the god of war and beheaded another head of the 9 golden dragon in an instant. The gatekeeper's 4 dragon heads were chopped off, but he didn't seem to care at all. He flipped his claws and slammed them onto Amigo's body. Amigo fell from the sky and was pressed onto the ground. The blood trident slashed through the gatekeeper's claws and stabbed into Amigo's body. A stream of Styx water fell from the sky, and under the guidance of the blood trident, it turned into a whirlpool and stabbed into Amigo's body. Ah! Amigo's avatar screamed miserably, and wisps of gray gas pervaded his body. Styx's water was highly toxic to any living intelligent life form. Even avatars of gods would be seriously injured if they came into contact with Styx's water. The radiant blade of judgment slashed down again and beheaded one of the gatekeeper's heads. Arkatha's lion god's claw smashed the other head of the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper didn't care. Its huge claws stabbed into Amigo's embodiment and tore it apart. Amigo's embodiment, eroded by the water of the Styx River, was torn to pieces. Chapter 340. Seeing Amigo perish, Arkath and Prados were shocked, and their countenances flickered. Although the fallen Amigo was only an avatar, but it was one of his strongest avatars. Now that he died at the hands of the gatekeeper, and the avatar's soul was polluted by the water of the Styx, even Amigo's true body would suffer a lot of damage. At this time, the gatekeeper's avatar of the archaic 9-headed gold dragon only had 3 heads left. An overbearing aura still pervaded his body, and drops of blood slowly dripped from the broken parts of his 6 heads, showing no signs of recovery. The archaic 9-headed gold dragon had a fearsome regenerative ability. However, Arkath and Prados' attacks, which contained the power of law, completely severed the regenerative ability of the gatekeeper's avatar of the archaic 9-headed gold dragon, making it impossible for him to heal himself. Prados' majestic voice came from the chariot shrouded in endless light. "Gatekeeper, you only have 3 heads left. If you continue to fight, you will die. As for us, we are merely an avatar here. Even if we have to abandon these 2 avatars, we must go in. I still have countless heads." The gatekeeper shone with scarlet light, and his body changed into a 3-headed freak. Nearly 2/3 of the dragon head was cut off, and blood dripped from it. It was a miserable sight. The gatekeeper stretched out his hand and directly tore off his dragon head, and then casually tossed it onto the wall of the gold palace. He pointed with the trident in his hand, and a giant's head flew down from the wall and connected to his head. Crimson force diffused from the bloody trident and enveloped the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper turned into a 100-meter-tall, 100-eyed giant with taut muscles and a fearsome aura of power that looks like it can split the heavens and the earth. As expected of the gatekeeper chosen by the Taboo Lord. "Unfortunately, my true body isn't here, or I would really like to fight you." A sigh came from the chariot shrouded in endless light, and the 9 sacred Pegasi faced upwards and neighed. Treading on sacred light, they pulled the chariot into the void and disappeared. As expected of the gatekeeper chosen by the taboo lord, you're really powerful. It's a pity that my true body can't get away. Otherwise, I would really like to fight you. Arketh shone, and he appeared in the luxurious litter in an instant. The nine-headed lion stepped on beams of incomparably dazzling divine light and pulled the luxurious carriage into the sky, disappearing into the void. The gatekeeper suddenly looked up at the area shrouded in dazzling light in the sky. A bunch of good-for-nothings. A faint sigh came from the dazzling divine light. The dazzling divine light collapsed one by one and disappeared. Scarlet light flickered on the gatekeeper's body, and he returned to his three-headed freak form. Clenching the bloody trident in his hand, he slowly walked back to in front of the gold gate. Pieces of stones flew up from all directions and entered the gatekeeper's body, turning him into a stone statue again. Dolores and the other legend rank powerhouses who luckily survived took a deep look at the stone statue of the gatekeeper. Fear flashed in the abyss of their eyes, and they blurred into motion and quickly fled. After witnessing the terrifying might of the Feisua Plains gods and the gatekeeper's stone statue, the legend rank powerhouses from other planes were well aware that as long as the gatekeeper didn't die, the relic of the taboo lord wouldn't fall into their hands. Inside the gold palace guarded by the gatekeeper. Unlike the extravagant and gorgeous outside, the interior of the gold palace was covered in green vines, on which beautiful flowers bloomed. Bursts of floral fragrance came from the beautiful flowers and formed a special fragrance in the air. Yang Feng just took a whiff of that special fragrance and his whole body felt as if it was floating. His whole body felt extremely comfortable, warm, and full of strength. Yang Feng praised sincerely, "That's amazing." As expected of one of the strongest powerhouses of the Zhangji Plain, no, of the countless plains, the taboo lord. The fragrance of the flowers that permeated the air could quickly strengthen a cultivator's physical quality and raise their cultivation base if they absorbed it for a long period of time. On the Zhangji Plain, there was also a branch of aroma warlocks. This branch of warlocks used various fragrances to form a variety of mixed fragrances and promote their cultivation base. Aroma warlocks were the best perfume manufacturers on the Zhangji Plain. The various fragrances and perfumes they produced were also called magic fragrances and possessed all kinds of mystical powers. Reportedly, the progenitor of aroma warlocks was the founder of the second warlock dynasty, the Taboo Lord. Inside the beautiful fairyland-like palace with countless flowers in full bloom, there was a jade table on a dais. On the jade table, there were two small jade boxes and a jade book. The two small jade boxes and the jade book radiated rays of resplendent light, illuminating the entire palace in an incomparably beautiful manner. Yang Feng's eyes lit up, and a scorching glint flashed in the abyss of his eyes. He took a step forward and picked up the jade book. Taboo text. When Yang Feng grabbed the jade book in his hand, a stream of information was transmitted into his sea of knowledge from the jade book, allowing him to understand how to read the jade book. At the same time, all kinds of information from the book entered his sea of knowledge. These are the first 6 volumes of the taboo text. The first volume can let people practice cultivation until the official warlock realm. The second volume can let people practice cultivation until the great warlock realm. The third volume can let people practice cultivation until the starry sky warlock realm. The fourth volume can let people practice cultivation until the Moonlight Warlock realm. The fifth volume can let people practice cultivation until the Glorious Dawn Warlock realm. The sixth volume can let people practice cultivation until the Bright World Warlock realm. In addition to the original 6 volumes of the taboo text, there is also a secret method he deduced in his later years, the cultivation method of the Primal Chaos Imperishable Body. It needs to be used together with the Primal Chaos bead he made in order to practice cultivation. There is a Primal Chaos bead in here. Yang Feng grabbed the 2 small jade boxes, and a scorching glint flashed in his eyes. Inside the 2 small jade boxes, there were 2 beads. One of the beads was called the Primal Chaos bead, which was needed to cultivate the Primal Chaos Imperishable Body. The other jade box contained the Taboo Magic bead, which was needed to cultivate the original version of the taboo text. The time text, the taboo text, the transcendent text, the star text, the death text, the Golem text, and the Magic Note text were known as the 7 strongest texts created by the humans of the Xianxia plane. These 7 texts condensed the life's blood, sweat, and tears of the 7 strongest warlock emperors of the Xianxia plane. In that long period of time, because the difficulty of cultivating the 7 great grimoires was too harsh, many of them had already been lost. Only bits and pieces of the grimoires were left, and they had all been changed into simplified versions for the benefit of the later generations. For example, the taboo text, a peerless secret method created by the taboo emperor, could not be cultivated without a taboo magic bead. As for the time text, only freakish geniuses who possessed the time body and had an innate affinity with time force were qualified to cultivate it. In the Xianxia plane, only the Time Lord has truly cultivated the time text to the pinnacle. Even the other 6 warlock emperors couldn't cultivate the peerless secret method time text. Yang Feng put away the treasures and then looked around. In addition to the dais, there were 2 passageways. From the taboo text, Yang Feng learned that one of the 2 passageways led outside the dark forest, and the other led to the taboo lord's room. After hesitating for a while, Yang Feng walked towards the taboo lord's room. He was very interested in the taboo lord, the founder of the 2nd Warlock dynasty. As soon as Yang Feng stepped into the room leading to the taboo lord's room, powerful barrier force erupted in a flash and sent him flying dozens of meters away. Yang Feng smiled bitterly. It seems that although the taboo lord left behind treasures, but he doesn't want others to pry into his residence. Yang Feng put down Gleistar and Ezramia on his back. Yang Feng said solemnly, "I'm going to practice cultivation here for a period of time. You should also try to recover your strength during this time." The palace was filled with a mystical fragrance. This was a secret fragrance concocted by the taboo lord, which could enhance a cultivator's physique and cultivation base. It was a peerless treasure. Yang Feng intended to seize this opportunity to stay in the palace and practice cultivation to improve his strength. Okay. Gleistar and Ezramia nodded in agreement. They could all feel the mystical fragrance permeating the palace, healing their injuries. Even Ezramia, who had been suppressed by the curse, could feel her body rapidly recover under the nourishment of the secret fragrance. Yang Feng took out the taboo bead and pressed it against his forehead. At the same time, according to the records in the taboo text, he started to operate a secret method, silently recited an incantation, and pointed at the taboo bead. Pitch black light shone, and the taboo bead merged into Yang Feng's forehead little by little, and finally entered his sea of knowledge. When the taboo bead entered Yang Feng's sea of knowledge, it hit his soul seed as if a star. Bursts of pain came from Yang Feng's sea of knowledge. His spirit sea shook, and the spell models inside his spirit sea trembled, on the verge of collapse. Chapter 341. Inch by inch, the taboo magic bead merged with Yang Feng's soul seed. A vast and boundless force diffused from the taboo bead and frantically absorbed the spell models inside Yang Feng's spirit sea and poured them into the taboo bead. Due to the power of the taboo bead, the power of the black dragon bloodline inside Yang Feng was extracted inch by inch and entered the taboo bead. After losing the power of the black dragon bloodline, Yang Feng's aura weakened a lot. Before long, the taboo magic bead released formidable black dragon force that spread into Yang Feng's body, nourished and strengthened his fleshly body, and restored his original strength. The taboo lord was a peerless expert who had fused the power of countless bloodlines and finally reached the summit. The original version of the taboo text was a bloodline warlock text that used the power of the taboo magic bead to fuse with the power of countless bloodlines and climb to the summit step by step. Generally speaking, bloodline warlocks could only fuse with one bloodline and possess the power of one extraordinary life form's bloodline. But after cultivating the taboo text, as long as you absorb the power of countless extraordinary life forms' bloodlines, you could possess the terrifying power of countless extraordinary life forms. Moreover, once you cultivated it to the peak, the power of countless life forms' bloodlines could even be fused into one and turned into taboo magic power, becoming a terrifying power that surpassed divine power. 10 days later, Yang Feng completely fused with the taboo magic bead and adapted to the transformed power. With the help of the mystical fragrance, Yang Feng immediately began to attack the great warlock realm. Time passed, and 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Inside the palace, Yang Feng opened his eyes, and a vast dragon might slowly diffused from him. As if a newly matured black dragon had opened its eyes and was looking for prey. Yang Feng felt the nearly endless power inside him, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. I finally promoted to a great warlock. Since Yang Feng obtained the resources of the major forces in the Tyrannid subcontinent, it was only a matter of time before he promoted to a great warlock. Due to his solid foundation, Yang Feng was able to promote to a great warlock with the help of the mystical fragrance in the palace where the taboo lord lived. As Ramia opened her beautiful eyes and took a deep look at Yang Feng, and her beautiful eyes flickered with admiration, amazing! In just a few years, he stepped into the legend realm from an ordinary great wizard in one fell swoop. He might even become a god in the future. Godly ascension. When she thought of this word, Ramia sighed inwardly, and her beautiful eyes glimmered gloomily. The gods were high and mighty, overlooking the mortal world. Their status was incomparably majestic. Ramia was one of the most powerful great elven monarchs in the history of elves, and her talent was astonishing. But even so, she did not ignite her divine flame and become a true demigod. Instead, it was a super expert at the peak of the demigod realm. The god positions in the elven divine system were already full, so there were no believers for Ramia to ascend to godhood. After her death, her best outcome would be to enter the divine country of the elven primary god Mophisareja and become a demigod-ranked disciple serving the primary god. On the Fesua plane, if humans didn't ignite their divine flame, the strongest would only be pinnacle legend rank existences. No one could take that step and reach the demigod realm without the help of external forces. Elves, dragons, fiends, devils, kindred, giants, and other formidable beings could rely on the secret methods passed down in their race to break through the legend boundary and reach the demigod realm. However, on the Fesua plane, if one didn't ascend to godhood, it would be very difficult to possess power comparable to that of a god. Elves, dragons, fiends, devils, kindred, giants, these races came from different planes. On their own planes, it was relatively easy for them to break through and reach the god rank, but on the Fesua plane, it was extremely difficult. That was because different planes had different laws and environments, and different laws and environments were suitable for different races to break through and evolve. As a Grade 1 plane, the Zhangji plane had extremely strong tolerance, adaptability, and rich vigor of heaven and earth. No matter what race it was, they could break through and evolve here. This was why it became the goal of all races. On the Fesua plane, even an elven genius like Ramia, who was rarely seen in 1,000 years, had little hope of breaking through the godman boundary and becoming a god-rank powerhouse without the help of external forces. Yang Feng came up to the two women and asked, "How are you now?" Gleistar said with a charming smile, "Master, I have recovered my strength to the advanced legend rank. Although I can't use divine spells, but my archery isn't inferior to that of many human legend rank archers." Ramia also showed a smile. "The fragrance in the palace can suppress the curse of Kiss of Lolth. I have also recovered my strength to the junior legend rank." Yang Feng said, "All right, let's go. It's time to leave." When Yang Feng stepped into the passageway leading to the outside world, a feeling of spatial distortion welled up inside him. His vision blurred, and he appeared on a bright and resplendent land. This is no longer the underground world. Yang Feng looked up at the sun in the sky, his heart relaxed slightly, and he revealed a smile. The advanced demigod rank powerhouse Dolores was still not in existence that Yang Feng could contend against. Even if Yang Feng, Ramia, and Gleistar joined forces, they still couldn't defeat the advanced demigod rank Dolores. Ramia looked at the sun in the sky with a complicated look in her beautiful eyes. Yang Feng suddenly said, "Ramia, do you still want to go back to the elves? If I'm not mistaken, there should be a mole among the elves, and the status of the mole should be very high. Otherwise, the moonlight tree wouldn't have been so easily breached. With your current strength, You'll just be walking into a trap if you go back. The Moonlight Tree was equivalent to the Victory Palace of the Morince Empire, and its defense was extremely strong. Even with the high elven trader goddess Lolth, it still wouldn't be so easily infiltrated. To be able to let dark elves and abyssal fiends sneak into the Moonlight Tree, the status of the mole had to be extremely high. As Ramia sighed faintly and said with her mind in turmoil, "I know. I'll stay with you for the time being." The corners of Yang Feng's mouth rose slightly, and he silently recited an incantation and pointed at the sky. With a flash of magic light, a huge mage eye suddenly appeared midair and looked in all directions. Yang Feng's eyes lit up slightly, and he pointed to the west and said solemnly, "There's a human city in that direction. Let's go." Yang Feng and his party quickly arrived at the entrance to the city. The city's city wall was more than 20 meters tall and was surrounded by a long moat. The city gate was closed, and teams of soldiers were patrolling above the city wall, looking like they were facing a formidable enemy. The entrance of the city was crowded with refugees from all over the world. However, the city's gates were tightly shut and there was no sign of it opening. "Let me in. I beg you, let me in. Let me in. I beg you, let me in. The fiends are coming." Waves of incomparably mournful screams rang out from the crowd of refugees. The sound waves shook the heavens, and it was extremely miserable. "I order you to leave at once. Don't stay down there, or I'll release arrows." Atop the city wall, an officer looked down at the refugees with a cold look in his eyes, barked, and raised his hand. The 200 archers on top of the city wall raised their bows and pointed at the refugees below. When the refugees saw the actions of the archers atop the city wall, their complexions changed dramatically, and they rushed to the back. Amidst the pushing and shoving of the refugees, many of the weaker ones were directly pushed into the moat, as they let out miserable screams. Elves and dark elves didn't have a favorable impression of humans. Gleistar watched this cruel scene with relish. As Ramia, on the other hand, couldn't help but turn her head to the side. Although she didn't have a favorable impression of humans, but she still couldn't bear to see humans die senselessly. When Yang Feng saw this, he frowned slightly. Although he didn't consider himself a good person, but seeing such a scene still left him in a bad mood. "Release the arrows." A cruel glint in his eyes, the officer atop the city wall revealed a cruel smile, waved his hand, and barked. 200 arrows rained down on the refugees below. "Stop!" Accompanied by a loud shout, a man draped in a black cloak stretched out a finger, and an extremely powerful distorted force field suddenly appeared, blocking the air above the refugees. When the 200 arrows hit the warping force field, they were immediately ricocheted. "Wizard! Quickly go and invite Sir Bishop of the Temple." When he saw this, the officer's complexion suddenly changed dramatically, and he barked at once. Several soldiers quickly ran down the city wall and rushed madly towards the church in the city. "Open the gate. Let these people in." A magnetic and commanding voice came from the cloak. The officer looked embarrassed, yet he lowered his posture and said respectfully, "Sir Wizard, this is His Majesty's order. Please don't make things difficult for us nobodies. I have already sent someone to report the situation here to Sir Bishop and His Majesty. Please wait a moment." The wizard in the cloak was silent for a moment, then said faintly, "All right." Before long, a middle-aged man dressed in a gorgeous robe arrived atop the city wall under the escort of a dozen priests. Chapter 342. The man dressed in a gorgeous robe stared at the wizard wrapped in a cloak and said unhurriedly, "I am Pope Pavon of the Great Church of the God of the Mexican River. Respected wizard, may I ask who you are?" On the Fesua plain, there were many regional gods. The god of the Mexican River was a regional god. The scope of his faith was limited to the places where the Mexican River passed. Most of the regional gods were feeble gods, and they barely became gods. They might not even have their own divine country, and were among the weakest among gods. Regional gods didn't dare to expand their domain at will. If the god of the Mexican River dared to exceed his domain and change his name to the god of rivers, He would be hostile and attacked by the gods of rivers of all divine systems. Many powerhouses who did not have any backing or background would usually only become some regional gods after they became gods. Only gods with a divine system as their backer could use a god name that could cover the entire Feisua plain. I am Princess Chrissy of the Iman Principality. The cloaked person tore off the cloak covering his body, revealing the figure beneath the cloak. Under the cloak was a woman with long, sky-blue hair and beautiful eyes that looked like top-notch sapphires. She was tall and sexy, and her skin sparkled like jade. Her facial features were exquisite, and there was a golden rune engraved on her forehead that looked like a golden beauty mark. She gave off a valiant aura and was incredibly beautiful. Yang Feng was a little surprised when he heard that. He looked at the beautiful woman, Princess Chrissy of the Iman Principality. The Iman Principality was a small principality that was destroyed by Duke Iser using his private troops a few years ago. Countless people in the principality were reduced to slaves and sold by Duke Iser. Reportedly, the fuse of that war was the elder princess of the Iman Principality, Princess Chrissy. After Duke Iser refused to marry Princess Chrissy of the Iman Principality, he flew into a rage out of humiliation. Using this as an excuse, he annexed the Iman Principality and took the opportunity to expand the power of the Hansen family. Princess Chrissy's whereabouts were unknown during that war. Yang Feng didn't expect to see the princess of a fallen principality here. Yang Feng's gaze fell on the gold imprint on Princess Chrissy's forehead, and his eyes flashed with a peculiar glint. That's a divine mark. This was proof that she was blessed by the gods. The Iman Principality believes in Venia, the goddess of the Iman Springs. Venia was a legendary water magician who survived the demonic plague 5,000 years ago. After various fortuitous encounters and countless hardships, she finally took that step and became a god. As she did not have a powerful backer, she could only ascend to godhood as the goddess of the Iman Springs. Her land of faith was the Iman Principality. After the destruction of the Iman Principality, Venia could not help but intervene in the affairs of the mortal world. According to the agreement between the gods could not directly interfere with the mortal world, but they could use various indirect methods. Venia had obviously chosen Princess Chris to shoulder the heavy responsibility of restoring the kingdom. On the Feisua plain, there would often be some small states that had been destroyed, where several powerful heroes would suddenly emerge, overcome numerous difficulties, defeat many enemies that were practically impossible to defeat, and restore the state. During this process, there was the shadow of the gods. Pavon frowned slightly. He pondered for a while, and then said unhurriedly, "So it's Her Highness Princess Chrissy. You and your subordinates can come in. As for the rest, they have to be detected by a spell before they can enter the city. You should be aware that the demonic plague has already begun. Abyssal fiends shapeshifters can take human form. We have to be careful." Chrissy responded faintly, "All right." Pavon silently recited an incantation, pointed down with the scepter in his hand, and cast a spell to detect non-human beings. Beams of resplendent blue divine light descended from the sky, scattering towards the refugees. There was no reaction from the refugees, but two red beams of light shot out from Gleistar and Ezramia next to Yang Feng. "Abyssal fiend." A voice suddenly sounded in the crowd. The eyes of the refugees next to Yang Feng's group of three brimmed with horror, and they scrambled to escape in different directions. A large empty space quickly appeared around Yang Feng's group of three, making them very conspicuous. Chrissy unsheathed a sword from her waist, pointed at Yang Feng's group of three, and barked, "Who are you?" Atop the city wall, Pavon's spirit force locked onto Yang Feng's group of three from afar. With the scepter in hand, he was ready to recite an incantation and give them a fatal blow. "I am Duke Ian of the Morince Empire, and these two are my concubines." Yang Feng lifted the cloaks wrapped around the three of them and said boldly. Gleistar and Ezramia had used camouflage magic to disguise most of their features. But in the eyes of outsiders, they were still two rare top beauties. When Ezramia heard Yang Feng say that she was his concubine, she felt slightly embarrassed and annoyed. But deep inside, A touch of joy welled up inside her. Pavon's complexion suddenly changed slightly, and then he revealed a kind smile and said, "Duke Ian of the Red Earth Wasteland, so it's you. Please come in." The Mexican Principality was a small principality with the Church of the God of the Mexican River as its state religion. It was one of the many small principalities located in the chaotic mountain range at the junction of the Red Earth Wasteland, the Titan Principality, and the Morince Empire. Even Pope Pavon of the Church of the God of the Mexican River was merely an archbishop rank existence in the Xalia Divine System's Radiant Church. Such a small principality didn't dare to offend a bigwig like Yang Feng. Princess Chrissy looked at Yang Feng from afar with a complicated look in her beautiful eyes. The city gate opened, and the refugees poured into the city. Yang Feng and his party were welcomed into the imperial palace of the Mexican Principality. In the imperial palace of the Mexican Principality, inside a luxurious banquet hall. Inside the banquet, well-dressed aristocratic men and women had formed small circles and were conversing intimately with each other. A handsome young man with short blue hair, dressed in a white formal attire, was surrounded by a dozen beautiful girls. The dozen beautiful aristocratic girls looked at the young man with adoration in their beautiful eyes. "Make way, all of you, make way. Get out of the way, all of you. Kissad already has someone he likes. If you want to find a man, you might as well come to me." A young man with an ordinary appearance and a dissolute temperament in a black formal attire squeezed to the side of the young man and revealed a dissolute and unrestrained smile to the dozen beautiful aristocratic girls. The dozen beautiful aristocratic girls could only smile helplessly, stared at the young man, and turned to leave. Beside the handsome young man, there was only the young man with a dissolute aura and a tall, tanned, and very capable beauty. The young man with a dissolute temperament swept the handsome young man with a glance, and his eyes shimmered with envy, saying, "Kissad, you're a god's darling for a reason. Not only are you handsome, but you're also a legend-rank powerhouse at a young age. Coupled with the fact that you're popular with women, it's really enviable. I really want to exchange with you." Kissad smiled, and his eyes filled with enthusiasm. "Gages, you don't have to envy me. Your talent in swordsmanship is 1 in a million. Few people in the Mexican Principality can defeat you. It's only a matter of time before you become a sacred swordsman. When the time comes, we two brothers will join forces and make the Mexican Principality even stronger." Gages shook his head, then picked up a glass of red wine, drank it in one gulp and smiled faintly. "Really? You're really a guy that people can't be envious of." Just then, there was a sudden uproar at the entrance of the reception hall. A beautiful woman with long blue hair, snow-white skin, a tall and sensual figure, an oval face, an extraordinary temperament, and an enchanting charm in a blue-bearing evening dress stepped into the palace with a smile on her face. As soon as the beautiful woman stepped into the palace, she suppressed the brilliance of the other beauties in the palace. The beautiful girls in the palace seemed to have been reduced to green leaves that set off her beauty. Kissad's eyes lit up, he revealed a smile, and he took the initiative to greet the beautiful woman. Gages suddenly said with a smile, "Becky, Kissad and Her Highness Ticini, the first most beautiful princess of the Mexican Principality, are a match made in heaven, aren't they?" The tall beauty with wheat-colored skin, a capable face, and rough hands, which were covered with calluses from practicing swordsmanship, stiffened slightly. Her beautiful eyes dimmed as she said with great difficulty, "Yes, they are indeed a match made in heaven." At this moment, Yang Feng took Ezramia and Gleistar into the palace. Immediately after, gazes fell on Ezramia and Gleistar. Although they used spells to conceal their true appearances, but they were still extremely beautiful. Besides, as they held high positions in the past, they naturally had a condescending, dignified, and elegant temperament. In particular, Gleistar's every move carried endless charm, causing the men in the banquet to stare at her beautiful and delicate body, unable to shift their eyes away. On the Feisua plane, apart from succubi, dark elves were the second most adept at seducing men. As the Pope of Dark Elves, Gleistar was proficient in countless secret spells. Her every move carried endless charm, causing people's imaginations to run wild. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.